In my retro babes, tonight we're going to be reviewing Twilight. Picture this, it's 2009 and the most important things on a lot of people's minds, including mine, was whether or not you were team Edward or team Jacob. So, with no further ado, let's get into this review. Honestly, I don't think that there's anybody who hasn't really watched or heard of the whole Twilight saga to the point that they basically know the storyline, whether or not they watched the series or not. So I'm gonna give you guys a quick rundown. So, girl meet guy, guy leaves girl, girl is sad, girl hangs out with other guy leaves girl, girl is sad times two, turns out other guy is a werewolf, girl leaves guy, goes saves other guy, and now at the end, girl and guy are engaged? Yeah. Great, now that everybody's up to speed, I'm going to... What am I going to do? Anyway, we're going to do on this video... You know when your brain dies mid-thought? Like, I swear my brain dies mid-thought and I'm just like, what was I saying again? But anyway, let's move on. So, in this video, we're going to have 4 main talking points, basically, which is Bella's relationship with Edward, Bella and Jacob, Bella's relationship with Charlie, and then Bella's relationship with herself. Ciao. Let's get into the first one, shall we? Now, Bella and Edward's relationship is pretty, how do I describe it? A toxic dumpster fire? But anyway, we're going to be specifically looking at the age gap in this relationship. So, Edward is a 109-year-old, 17-year-old that's dating a 17 turning 18-year-old young high schooler. But I guess the movie doesn't really want to address that. So what they do is they then have Bella, that's just turning 18, go through a midlife crisis, which is insane. While Bella is shaking in her boots about turning 18, Alice decides that she's going to plan a party anyway. And at this party is where we see a huge overreaction on Edward's part that you just got to see it to believe it if you haven't already. But we're about to see it again. Now, after showing us that he puts the hi-ho K in karate, we're gonna be moving on to our next scene. Poor communication. Poor communication seems to be the bane of Edward's and Bella's relationship. They never can have a real conversation or dialogue. They just use sound effects, which is so weird. Sound effects, staring, smelling, and also lip biting is how they communicate. And in part 1, it was interesting, but here in part 2, we see where lack of communication makes Edward take Bella out into the middle of a forest and then decide to bust a Danny Phantom. Now, after wandering in the forest for hours, girl, Bella has given up and decided to lay on the forest floor. And I will say, I will be damned if somebody think that they're gonna break up with me and they take me out into the middle of nowhere and then they just speed race off and leave me out there, and I already suck with directions. How do I get home? Like, really? What about lions and tigers and bears? Edward Collins, everybody. Edward. Like, what are their hobbies? What connects them? What interests do they have? Did they even sit down and talk in real time about, like, family or tennis or music? I guess I remember that time when Edward was trying to show her that one music that he was listening to, and she was like, oh yeah, of course I know what you're talking about. It was very meh. Like, what makes them so meant for each other other than Stephanie writing them to be together? We're on to you, sis. Once again, I will say we are on to you. Now, on to the relationship, that romantic relationship at least, that I honestly do like the most in this whole series. Child, young 15-year-old me, when I had saw on Jacob Black, it was like, now, strangely enough, although this is supposed to be a story about Edward and Bella, in New Moon, it was like something completely different. Jacob basically got to be a main character for a bit, and here we see a new side of the movie, or what it could potentially be for Bella, but she wasn't open. But anyway, here in this relationship, we see that their conversation flows like they have prior knowledge of one another since they were childhood friends. They actually spend time together, like, and enjoy the things that they're doing. Like, we see them going to the movies, fixing the motorcycle, driving around. Jacob was a passenger princess. Why am I stumbling upon my words? But anyway, Jacob was a passenger princess for a bit, and we just watch them, and we aren't bored. Ain't that crazy? But anyway, through Jacob and Bella's relationship, we get to see Bella in a completely different light. Like, Bella's laughing. Bella is expressing her interests and her concerns, and there's highs and lows to their relationship to do, but they communicate and talk with one another. She reaches out to him and he reaches out to her, and there's a healthy bond there and a gradual progression of the relationship. And it isn't just huffing and puffing and lip biting and stuff like that. So it's interesting, and it was pretty good that they could just carry the movie by themselves with no Edward. Basically 2 hours of no Edward was insane. How amazing it still flowed. Now, I will say, I feel like Bella was finding any reason to put her hands on Jacob. Not that I'm, giving her any shit about it, because I would have had my hands all over him as well. But their chemistry is so much better, I think. Like, there was genuine moments where he was, like, very close to her, or she would be touching him, and I'd be like, ooh, girl, y'all better stop. And the way that they had that little back and forth banter that they would do with one another, and it carried throughout the series. Like, he would say something smart and she'd say something smart back, and there was, I don't want to say that type of tension, but I did feel tension. It was like, ooh, 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 okay, girl, okay, guys, get it then.
Look loudly.
Now, honestly, guys, Bella just kind of seems to be every parent's nightmare. That seemingly normal kid that doesn't care about the rules, but somehow they still like skirt the lines of they're not that bad, but honestly, are they good? She just doesn't care about dashing off into the middle of the night without a single call or care for others, while she just obsessed and, I guess, foam at the mouth over Edward.
Sometimes you gotta learn to love what's good for you.
Charlie continues to give her sound advice, obviously, as a great parent should do, and he's just hinting at certain stuff to her, but we all know that Bella doesn't listen to nothing that Charlie says, and instead she just hurts him throughout this series repeatedly. Every single time that she just decides that Edward is more important than any other thing in this world. Child, y'all, we need to get a petition started. Free Charlie, please. We get to see Bella go through a moment, a season is what I want to say, a season of depression, and trust me, I totally get it. But it was just the way that it affected her so deeply, although she had only known Edward for such a short period of time. I don't know, it really sends a message that maybe Bella, we need to work on some other things other than this relationship right now, because I don't understand how this has sent you into such a spiral when you guys barely spoke in the 1 year that you were together. Horrible detachment issues, guys. Horrible, with people leaving. We see it again once Jacob didn't answer her calls. We see her pacing back and forth and leaving messages for him over and over again. And it was just like, okay, girl, we have to learn to let some things go.
It's always been him.
Though I don't think that Bella could be anything other than a main character, because the way that she was just using people left and right without any care in the world. I mean, she used Jacob as a rebound, and although she would be like, no, I'm not interested, the next second she'd be like, please come back to me. And then also the way that she would just completely disregard Charlie and run off to, where was it, Italy, Sicily, somewhere on the other side of the world, without even a, hey dad, I gotta run. Nope, no way. And even the way that she came back to her friend group, like she had not been acting like they didn't exist for the past 3 to 4 months, and she just sat down mid conversation, was like, oh yeah, my dad told me that it was. I was like, what is going on? No, nothing. No, hey guys, I know I've been distant, but I do apologize, I was going through something. Just sit down and start talking like normal. Girl, goodbye. The way that Bella had no care for herself literally screams that I think I bring absolutely nothing to the table and I see no value in myself. Not because she was struggling mentally. It was just like she would intentionally put herself in these dangerous scenarios just so she could get a glimpse of a phantom of Edward. Like, what are you doing? Like, sis, what are you doing? Why? Jumping on the back of a biker's motorcycle. You know where a guy could have taken you? Why are we doing this? Why are we not trying to figure out another way to cope with these issues? Because her complete disregard for herself was insane.
Hey, knock it off! There's a kid back there!
I'm in danger!
All in all, babes, I personally think that Bella should have been on some type of self-care journey. You know, maybe doing some therapy. Maybe date myself, marry myself, recommit to myself, you know, have a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea, you know, a pampering spa day. She should have been looking into ways to pour into herself than being in any type of relationship with anybody, because she just really was not ready, honestly. Overall, guys, I enjoyed it even at this stage in my life. I found myself actually rewinding a few of the bits that I was just like, oh, I have to see it again. And I would rewind it. And I just felt like a kid in a candy store, honestly. And it made me feel butterflies. And I loved the overall warm tone of everything. Like how nice and alive this movie felt compared to the previous one that was more like blue toned, obviously to represent Edward, and this one was kind of to represent Jacob. But yeah, I did really like it. Never mind my rant, I had a great time watching it. But overall, babes, I do believe that this seemed to be the best relationship choice, and any sane person could see that. And we didn't need to be distracted by his whole entire family and a band of side characters just to get through 2 hours of this movie. The viewers definitely fell in love with Jacob and Bella in this one, because it felt right. It didn't feel like we needed to fight so hard to see them together. Which then makes the butchering of his character in the next 3 movies even more painful, honestly. All just to continue to shove Edward and Bella's toxic tangle down our throats. But I digress.